We're taking that water cue. We got the cue from Q. We're a minute before we hit we're actually live here before going live there. And Tassos, this is all being recorded, so it's forever.
All
Throw my
right.
headset in. Yeah. Okay. Got my calendar update. Going to hit that go live. Let's see. Just before we hit the go live button, I want to quickly make sure that we are in fact streaming on all our platforms. Let's see here. For everyone who's just tuning in or watching this on repeat, my name is Sean. This is Tassos, and we're talking about traffic services, traffic safety. We're talking about insurance stuff today. We're answering questions. It's a live Q&A, as it always is. Okay, let me go here. Twitter. Did Twitter work? We've been having some issues with Twitter. I know the whole internet has been acting funny recently. Let's see here. Profile. Hey, what's the profile picture? Me taking a drink out of my thermos. That's fantastic. But it did work. I reloaded the information, so I want to make sure it worked. Okay, so we're there. We're gonna hit go live on the TikTok. Why are we on LTE? Okay, we're on LTE. Good to know. Let's take off that and see if that works. We're gonna flip the mirror the flip. Okay, so we are streaming on Twitch. We're streaming on there. We're there. Let's see. How about here? Okay. We're just doing a little bit slow to roll, making sure our platforms are working. Okay, let's see here. I'll actually go to my profile, make sure that's working. Hey, is it working? Hey, it's working. Okay, it looks like we're good everywhere. And we're live. So, hey, everybody, good morning. My name is Sean Shapiro. I'm a police constable with the Toronto Police Service here in Ontario, Canada. And we're live. We're live talking about traffic and policing and stuff and things. I got a good morning from Detroit there, from Too Much Roy. Can you really have too much Roy? I don't know. Jutta call with a good morning. How you doing? Just to let everybody know what sort of goes on here, throw your questions in the Q&A if you want me to see them. We've got moderators who are online, and they are checking out the chat room, but I rarely have time to look at the chat room. So we got Gucci, Godspeed, gentlemen. Why is that coming from moderator Q? It is coming from her because she's not joining me on the screen on the other platform. What's the other platform? Well, we're simultaneously, while here on TikTok, answering your questions about police and traffic. We're also on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. We're on Twitch. We're even on LinkedIn. So that's with my friend Tassos, who's on the other screen. You can't see him, but you will be able to hear him if he speaks because he's all tied in. We've joined all our voices and stuff with wires and whatnot. But Tassos is an underwriter in the insurance industry. So if you've got questions about insurance, today is a great day to ask those questions because he's able to answer them right here. He's always here as our moderator, but he's usually behind the scenes tapping away at the keyboard on his phone as opposed to being able to answer by voice. So Tassos, good to have you. Thanks for joining us on camera again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I can't wait to answer some of these questions.
You're going to get the fire hose of questions, I'm sure. Just a shout out to Big Jeff Fresh, who's joined us from YouTube. He's just with a morning. We've got a chat going there. So regardless of what platform you're watching us, you've got a way of communicating with us. So please feel free to jump in. Got a good morning from Milton coming through from Bill Bainton. We got a. Let's see. The Joker wants to know if cops can pull over cops for speeding. I would imagine we could, except that police officers in a police car are permitted to exceed the speed limit. But so we probably wouldn't be pulling them over because they're legally allowed to exceed the speed limit. Let's see here. Okay. But if they're off duty, if they're in their personal cars, absolutely they get pulled over. Dave Rains, my friend coming in from Facebook. Question for Tassos. If a municipality has older fire apparatus, at which point does it impact the cost of insurance? Now, this is relating to house insurance possibly as opposed to car insurance? Do you do other types of insurance, or are you just in the car game?
No, so I do home and auto as well. So it all comes into effect, right? It's all based on statistics and history of municipalities as well. So depending on if they have volunteer firefighters, how far a fire department is, fire hydrants, it all comes into play. So it's hard to really give an answer, but generally, depending on how old your municipality is, it could affect insurance depending on how long a fire truck can get to you and that as well.
Now, does that change province to province? Because Dave is not in Ontario.
Yeah, so it could depend on provinces. I'm only doing Ontario right now. So the best thing to do is you can always call your insurance company and ask them questions, and they would definitely be able to give you that information.
He's talking about like for the whole town, I imagine, or the whole area, because Dave happens to be, in the government. He's an elected official, and
Oh, okay.
congratulations live. We're giving congratulations. So Dave moved away; he's no longer here. Good morning from Will. He's shouting a good morning. And Q wants everyone to to double tap to hit that screen, show some likes because it helps TikTok in particular show everybody else on the platform that we're here, that we're cool, that we're something to talk about and be involved in. So if you are in our chat room on or watching our live on TikTok, please double tap, like our live, and we will invite more folks in here. Okay. Nubula Raven wants to know, can you pass on a solid yellow line? So the whole deal with lines, they're funny. Lines, there's no law about crossing a line. Lines are there to keep you safe. They're there to convey a message of whether or not it's suggested or safe to make those lane changes. And passing is usually advisable to wait until it's a dotted line. But talk about yellow versus white. This is one that blows everybody away, and it's inside the Ontario Driver's Handbook. A white line means that the person or a vehicle on the other side of that white line is traveling in the same direction as you. Yellow line, solid or dotted, means that on the other side of that line, traffic is traveling opposite you. So if you pass on a solid yellow where it's suggested you shouldn't because it's not as safe, can you do it? Yeah, if it can be done safely. But if you cause a collision, you're 100% in a problem. You're going to be you'd be in a problem if you were passing even with a dotted line, but you're really putting yourself in a position where you were advised by the solidness. That's a new word for me today. Solidness of the line. Robin on YouTube is saying, interesting topic, insurance. Good to know more about it. Thanks for this. You're very welcome, Robin. We got all sorts of great knowledge in our group of moderators that have become part of the traffic services family from a volunteer perspective. So yeah, we got great resources here. We got a question coming in from Q from the chat room. My brake lights might not be working. Could you please advise on what the minimum requirement is? You need to have at least one brake light. In Ontario, one brake light is the minimum functioning, of course, and it has to be visible at 150 meters. So it's not that you need to have a light on that just lights up the back. It has to be a functioning brake light to notify people when you're applying your brakes. It's important. Helps prevent collisions. Now, if your lights, if it's daytime and your brake lights aren't working and you have to drive, use hand signals out your window. Not so fun at night. Well, not at night. It's not permitted. You can't use it at night because no one will see your hand sticking out the window. You need to get those fixed. But if you're in the winter, it's real cold. Good morning to the safe driver. If you are not already following this gentleman, you really should be. He's a wonderful guy. He's a friend to the show. We do a show. He's a guest regularly on our live show on the other platforms. Gotta remember which camera I'm looking at when I say that. But we talk about learning to drive because the safe driver. His name is Scott Marshall. He's first and foremost, he's a driving instructor, but he's also an instructor to instructors. He teaches people how to become driving instructors. He's a podcaster, blogger, and now TikToker. So follow his channel because we need to get him up to 1,000 so we can actually follow and get him onto our lives right here on TikTok. Okay. Do you ticket for going 10 kilometers over the speed limit? Sometimes it depends on where. So generally speaking, we're looking for people who are driving more aggressively than 10 kilometers an hour. But I'll tell you something: if you're in a 30 kilometer an hour zone and you are traveling 10 kilometers over, you're significantly going over the speed limit. So you should expect a ticket. If you're doing 10 kilometers over on a highway that is 100 kilometers an hour speed limit, are you the number one target? Maybe not. Could you get a ticket? Absolutely, you could. Okay. Let's see here. Just looking around everywhere to make sure I'm not missing everybody. How long does it take to get your license after a DUI? So minimum, well, if you're convicted, initially when you're charged, you're getting a 90-day suspension. After you're convicted, it's going to be a minimum of a year. Sometimes it's 2. Depends on if you get into the interlock system or not. Island J says, "Hi, Sean. I really appreciate your show." Oh, it's Jude Manwaran. Oh my goodness. Island J is he's awesome. He was. I talk about you all the time, brother. He and I became auxiliaries together. And yeah, that's amazing. Oh, so glad you reached out. Appreciate it. We'll have to chat. We'll have to get together and go for coffee or something. I haven't seen you since 31 Division when I came. Yeah, that's a long time ago already. Years. Okay. What was I just jumping on here? Oh, I don't have a question on screen. Uh, do, do, do. Do you need to get vaccinated for road tests? I've been seeing a lot of comments suggesting that you might, but I don't know anything about this. Check out the drivetest.ca website. I'll see if I can find any information for you, but I'm not aware of anything that says you do, but it's entirely possible. Okay. What if my front wheels come up unintentionally? If you do a wheelie, it's stunt driving, whether you intended to or not. If you have, I know it says intentional, but how do you unintentionally do a wheelie? Okay. So your driving behavior created that situation. So I think it would be seen to be intentional. You'd need to justify that. Now, if you do a wheelie and fall off, maybe that was unintentional. If you do a wheelie and you ride down the highway like that, it's pretty intentional. Or at least will be perceived that way. So I'd be toning down your driving to avoid having that unintentional wheel, because it is going to be seen as stunt driving, and you'll have to explain it to a court. Okay. Will was having some testing issues. Let's see here. How long do you have to have your license to teach a G1? The deal is that you have to have a G, and your total time from when you got your G2 onward has to be 4 years. So if you do 2 years with your G2, then 2 years with your G, total time without any time removed for suspensions or otherwise would allow you to then supervise a G1 driver. And that's in Ontario, of course. Some people come in and say, can I have 4 years with a G1, 6 years with a G? That doesn't work. You have to have 4 years total once you've got your G, including G2 time. Someone wants to know if they can smoke marijuana and drive 30 minutes later. I'm going to say no. No, you can't. Okay. Now, how long does it take every individual to deal with marijuana in their system to become sober again? It's going to be different for everybody, but I would imagine 30 minutes is not it. If you're doing that, you're impaired driving. Okay. Can I drive on the highways with a G2? So first off, I always have to say that highways, when you talk about a G2, G2 specifically, you can drive on any highway, any road in Ontario. But highways in Ontario really mean any road. The word highway means any road. It's the Highway Traffic Act that covers everything. When you talk about expressways versus local roads, there's a difference. But any road in the province of Ontario, and in fact, you can travel interprovincially. You can even drive into the States with a G2. What modifications are allowed? Legal ones. Legal modifications are allowed. They're the best ones. It's too long a list to go through everything that's permitted. The truth is that anything you do must be a sanctioned modification. In other words, if you put spacers on your wheels and they're no longer covered by the fender or the mud flap, you are going to be in violation there. If you put an exhaust pipe that's not conforming to the rules, that's going to be a problem. But you could put an aftermarket modification that is legal. So I can't go through the list of everything, but there's a lot. If you have specific questions about things you're thinking of, by all means, feel free to ask. Do speed cameras take a pic if I'm going 1 to 5 over? I don't know. Plausible deniability. I don't know the exact number. I am going to be having the folks who administer that program come on to our live show in November. It was supposed to be November 3rd. We've had to move it. We haven't got a date laid out yet, but they're going to come in and they'll be able to answer questions. I highly doubt they'll answer that question, because what people want to know is, can I get away with it? Well, chances are 1 kilometer, no. 5 kilometers, maybe. Let's see here. Can you explain vehicles with green lights? I've been asked a few times. So there is a thing called volunteer fire, and that is something that is very common in smaller jurisdictions. Not Toronto, we have a full-time paid fire service, but in smaller communities, they have very often their fire department is either completely or augmented by volunteers, and they're great people. What is a green light on the front of that vehicle when you see it flashing in rural or areas outside of Toronto? Those are volunteer firefighters. It's not a requirement under the law to move out of their way, but if you won't move out of their way, you're a horrible person, because they're probably going to go save somebody who could be needing life saving help, or to prevent their house from burning down. So whatever it is, you pull over safely, let them pass you. That's the whole idea of a green light. fire vehicles in Toronto have green lights too, for different reasons. Maybe to be additional light because no one pays attention to flashing lights. Are click-on steering wheels allowed? Boy, a lot of questions today coming out of the chat. No. Well, no. So removable steering wheels are for race cars. Leave them on race cars. They're not street legal. Additionally, if you are removing your airbag system to put on an aftermarket steering wheel, that's also illegal. If your car was manufactured without one, go nuts. You can have an aftermarket steering wheel, not a click-on one. My understanding of those are not permitted on the road. Can you explain vehicles with? Oh, we covered that already. Okay. Must sleigh bells have two bells? Must sleighs have two bells? You know what? I have a sergeant here who's laid sleigh bell charges. I'll have to get him to come and answer that. And I'm not going to look it up now, but I do want to find you the answer because it is very apparent how important sleigh bell laws are, especially in Toronto. But seriously, I can look it up, just not right now. What age passengers can I have with a G2? So there's a limitation only for the first 12 months, 6 and 6, I think. First 6 months have one set of regulations after a certain time, and the second 6 months for another set of regulations. I have a video for it on our channel if you want to check it out. Let's see here. But I'd have to look it up because I don't remember the specifics for the... It's between midnight and 5 a.m. is when you have those restrictions. Did you go to training at the Depot in Regina? Depot in Regina is for the RCMP, so no, I did not. I'm with the Toronto Police Service, and I went to the Toronto Police College and the Ontario Police College. We do Ontario Police College. Any police officer who is a sworn officer in the province of Ontario went to the Ontario Police College, and then most police services have their own police college that you sort of start out at and then finish off at to do your local finishing, I guess. Is it true that cops have a quota to meet for tickets? No, at least not in Toronto. I can't speak to any other agency, but we're expected to do our job. So if we go to work and we go hit the road and we don't go to any radio calls and we don't write any tickets, what did you do? You can't just wave and look pretty. You got to write a ticket, and there's lots to be written. So not a quota, but you have to justify your existence. And I can tell you that if I look out my window for 5 minutes, I will see an offense. If I'm not writing tickets to them, I don't know why I'm a traffic cop. So I write tickets for traffic. And just to remind everybody, please don't spam. We have a magical group of moderators who are here trying to keep it classy by way of, removing people who spam. So if you're going to hit duplicate questions a whole lot, please stop because you'll be removed. And we don't want to do that. We want to keep it classy. We want to make sure that everyone gets their questions answered and can have a good time while they're here. And we are here to help. That's the whole reason we do this. Tasso, is anything going on? I'm surprised we haven't had 9 million questions for you about insurance specifically.
We've had a few insurance questions in the chat. I've answered just back and forth through the chat. So nothing that's really high level there, but yeah. As soon as I see a few, I'll bring them out to your attention.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure, because I'm sure that if there's a question there, it's probably a question that we can address for everybody. And let's see here, how do movies get away with looking like cops? Well, they're closed sets, so they're not just walking around looking like police officers, and very often they have police officers on the set, making sure that everything is copacetic. Nobody wants to impersonate a police officer while they're acting. But again, closed set or at least a very confined area. And they're not looking like Toronto officers. They aren't allowed to have our uniform. But it is cool. I've worked a lot of movie sets back when I was on the road, and very cool. I really like it when they're being nice and giving an accurate or at least a nice representation of what we do. Are radar detectors illegal? Yes, in Ontario they're illegal. In fact, there's search and seizure authority under the Highway Traffic Act specific to radar detectors and jammers. So they are illegal. You're not allowed to have stuff that basically helps you speed and puts lives at risk. And people say, well, what does it matter if radar is on, I'll just slow down. Well, the problem is, it doesn't. Tickets are to correct your behavior. And people don't like the way that sounds. If you're speeding, you're breaking the law, you're a lawbreaker. You're putting people at risk for really no reason, at least no acceptable reason. And we need to catch you and give you a ticket so you change your behavior. So your insurance rates go up. So these are things that have to happen so that you will find a motivation to drive within the rules. So if you find ways of circumventing that whole concept, you're just allowing yourself to continue along as a speeder and ultimately continue to put people at risk. And traffic safety is a shared responsibility. We want everybody to get along and get to where they have to go safely. Do red light cameras require signage? Yes, I do believe they do. I believe the signage is installed in advance of the light being installed. Oh, sorry, my mistake. I was talking about speed cameras. I don't know if red light cameras require you don't have to look at that. At the end of the day, I believe there is a great deal of signage in relation to them. I just don't know if it's required under law. The speed cameras, they are. But even if whether they do or not, if you're running red lights, who cares? I would hope that it's never an issue because you shouldn't be running red lights. Okay. Do you remember the first ticket you handed out? No, I can't say that I've written a lot of tickets. As a traffic officer that has been specializing in traffic for so long, and even while I was a rookie in 12 Division when I first got out, tickets were a big part of my day. But I can't remember the first one, no. I'm sure it was special. Not to downplay my first ticket, but I don't remember. Smoggy Lantern says it exactly right. Having a license is a privilege, not a right. Absolutely. Our plate covers. Let's see here. I jumped on that. I saw it on the.
It's always like that, right? Well, okay, Sean. So there is a question. How about you hydrate there? So our plate cover is legal. So, yeah, they're definitely not legal there. You can't have anything that obstruct the view of a plate cover.
Yeah.
The ones from the dealerships are technically illegal, right? So.
Absolutely, it's like you've been here before. Yeah, the deal is that tinted covers or anything that obscures dirt even is illegal, and so you can be ticketed for a dirty plate. You can be ticketed for obstructing your plate. Same deal, same ultimate effect. And a lot of people want to buy clear covers. They want to protect these. And I say this with a smile. The license plates have been so bad with the peeling and stuff. I appreciate where people want to protect their plate, especially if they've invested in buying a $500 vanity plate. But the problem is you can't. You can't do it because technically you're violating. Now, I've seen a couple of plate covers that are not legal, that are acceptable to me in that they don't obstruct any part of the plate. They're like a bubble, and they're attached in the back, and there's no thick plastic that obscures. There's nothing I can really say about it other than there's a piece of plastic over the plate. There's nothing that I would have an issue with. But technically, nothing can be on top of the plate. Okay. Can I wear my wireless earbuds when driving? Yes, you can. Is it the safest option? No. But is there a law against it? No. So do so with care. I mean, hearing is not a requirement under the law. You can be hearing impaired and drive a motor vehicle, and so there's no issue there. But for those of us who are hearing loud music and cutting off the ability for you to use all of your senses could have negative effects. You won't be able to hear a siren. You won't be able to hear the crunch of the vehicle behind you. There's things that you kind of want to be able to hear. But again, no law against it. If you're driving with a G1, can you drive with family? Yes, you can, but you can't have anybody other than your supervising driver in the front passenger seat paying attention and supervising you. But having people in the back, not an issue. Let's see here. Someone has found a paper temporary license. It's not mine. What should I do with it? The paper ones, you can put them in the mail. If you put it in the mail, they'll either return it to the owner or they will destroy it, and that gets sent back to the MTO. You can go to an MTO office or an office. What's that called? Service Ontario. You can drop it off there. I'm sure they don't want to see you. The paper ones aren't really an issue. It's the cards that are most important. Those are the ones you drop in the mail. So if it's expired, you could probably just destroy it. Let's see here. What if I follow a speeding car? Do I get a ticket? Well, if you are following a speeding car and you are pacing them, you are also a speeding car. And you are also equally responsible for your actions. So, yeah, you can get a ticket. So don't follow a speeding car. This whole concept of flow of traffic, it's okay because we're all doing it. Well, if you break the law as a group instead of speeding, if you rob a bank, but you were only following the first person to go through, you're still an accessory. You're still part of the group that's robbing the bank. So if you're speeding, whether it be you and 10 people or you alone, you're speeding, and you could be ticketed. Okay.
So there was another question then maybe you can touch base on that is, do police officers have to be parked in order to give a speeding ticket
No, I parked like with a. Okay, so yeah,
with
there's
a
a lot of.
radar.
Yeah, that's a good. Um, okay, so the deal is that we have moving radar. So I have in all the highway vehicles, we have a radar unit with an antenna to the front and to the back. We can get you coming, going, same direction, opposite direction, behind us, in front of us. Doesn't matter. We can measure your speed while we're driving, so we don't have to be parked in order to do that. Moving radar is a real thing. So don't speed. At the end of the day, don't speed. That's the easiest one. Q just throwing a question up. How old does a child have to be to sit in the front seat? So if they're in a child restraint, they can't be in the front seat because at least not in conjunction with a airbag, because airbags are dangerous, especially to people who are smaller. Now, is there a legal requirement once they're outside of a car seat? No, you can be any age, but we prefer and suggest strongly that they stay in the back seat until they turn 14. If you're bringing someone to the front seat before they turn 14, there's serious potential of injury as a result of the airbag. Okay. Turning right on a red without stopping is called running a red light. Yeah, you're required to stop and proceed only when safe to do so. So if you mess around and run it, not only will a red light camera catch you, but an officer may write you the ticket, which is actually worse for you. So stop and make sure it's safe to do so before making that turn. Is it legal to have an aftermarket catback? Yeah, as long as the aftermarket catback is a legal catback. It has to have a muffler. It has to have a resonator. Catback just means after the catalytic converters. So if it's a legal system and it meets the requirements of 74 decibel rating, and it just happens to be a larger diameter pipe, you're still legal. But you need to make sure that if you just put a straight pipe catback, no, it's not legal. Will we need to be vaccinated to renew your license? I'm not aware of anything that suggests that. I don't understand how that would be, but I've not seen anything about that. Can cops ask for IDs from anyone besides the driver? Yes, and depends. So we can ask anybody for anything. There's a difference between asking and demanding. So if I ask you to see your ID and you give it to me, that's no problem. If I ask you as the driver, you have to. If I'm asking you as a passenger because you're not wearing your seatbelt, you have to identify yourself. But do people in the back seat or people not being investigated for seatbelt offenses have to? No, they don't have to. Driver and any passenger being investigated for a HTA offense, they do. But if there's no allegation of wrongdoing there, they're just asking. Let's see here. Calling 911 while driving, is it illegal? No, there's an exemption. If you're calling emergency services, whether it be police, fire, ambulance, by way of 911, that's a permissible use. And you don't need to have Bluetooth. You don't have to have any special equipment. You got a phone, you can use it for an emergency purpose. Now, calling home to make sure that someone feeds the dog before lunch is not an emergency. I've had people do that. I've had people say it's an emergency. Or who are you calling? I'm calling daycare because I'm going to be late. Not an emergency. 911 is the only emergency. And it has to be for a reasonable thing. Let's see here. Who has the right of way if you're proceeding on a yellow light and there's a car making a left? So the car making the left has to make sure it's safe to do so before they make the left. So proceeding on a yellow light is one of those funny things. Most people don't get the fact that a yellow light means stop. So if it's safe to do so, you're supposed to stop, not go through. And if you go through on that yellow when you had lots of space to make the stop, you can be charged for failing to stop for a yellow. It's the same as running a red light. Okay. How do you prove distracted driving? So this is a funny question. That's not a funny question, but it's a good question. So distracted driving is either holding or using holding is using, according to the courts, a cell phone or an entertainment device. And if we see you holding your phone, that's what we say we saw. So it's we don't have to necessarily have a video. We have to have a testimony, which is the officer's statement in the court that we observed the driver doing what we observed them driving or doing while driving. Or in terms of cell phone use, if you're holding it in your hand, even if the screen is off at a stoplight, that's use. And that's it. Okay.
All right, so it's hydrate time, John.
Hydrate. I can do that.
Yeah, everyone's got to hydrate. So a question that came through is if I purchased a motorcycle through a private sale but lost the ownership before transfer, what do I do? I can't contact the original owner.
That's a problem, and it's a problem I don't have an answer for it. Be more careful. I don't know what to tell you. That's your only way of is to contact the previous owner, who has to then, I would say, spend $30, or probably you spend $30 to get that issued again. You may be able to. There's no other way to prove that you own that vehicle without that signed ownership. So it's gold. I do everything you can to get the original owner. If it's something where the original owner is dead and there's no way of doing it, they have an estate. If there's always going to be a way of dealing with it. Simply not being able to find them, that's a problem. Contact the ministry and see what they say. But I don't have a suggestion. But Tassos, what were you going to say about that?
So I was just going to say, always get a bill of sale if you do, because I sold my vehicle, and when I went to the ministry to make sure it was transferred out, it wasn't transferred out in my name, and that was 2 weeks later. So I was able to show proof that of the transaction and sold it. So always get proof of any purchases that you're doing, especially with vehicles.
That's a really good piece of advice. And what I like to say is make your sale at the ministry. Go to the ministry and actually complete the sale there, instantly making the change. Because so many times I've come across vehicles that were abandoned after a collision in the middle of a road, and they get impounded because there's no driver. So what happens? A number of weeks later, the registered owner calls the police station and says, "Hey, I've been told that I owe thousands of dollars for storage, and I don't own this car. I sold it like 2 years ago." Well, they sold it to someone who's been driving it with never transferred the ownership. And guess who's responsible? The last registered owner, because nobody went to the ministry to say, "Hey, I sold it," and no one went to the ministry to say, "Hey, I bought it." So you're still responsible. Yeah, that's a big deal, and it causes a lot of issues for people because they have a right to come after you. And if you haven't done your due diligence or what's respected or expected of you, you could be on the hook. EJM 0419 wants to know: can you drink water while driving? Yes, as long as it's safe to do so. And I mean that by this bottle. Giant bottle, not necessarily a good solution, because once you get to the top, you're hitting the ceiling, you're looking to the sky, you're not looking at the road. But something that's a regular sized container that you can do so without disrupting your driving. So if it's not unsafe, it's not a problem. Okay.
Well, Sean, I have someone's asked here about a photo of your insurance on your phone. Maybe you want to touch base on that, and copies of ownership, if they're allowed to be photocopies.
I can totally touch base on that, but you should touch base on the insurance side of it. But here's the deal. Just because I like going through the laundry list, driver's license must be your driver's license. No photo is acceptable. For your ownership document, you can have a photocopy as long as it's considered a true copy, which is front and back of a valid document. People say, "Well, my ownership doesn't expire, does it?" Yeah, it does. That's why we validate and get stickers every time we renew. So if you have a brand new ownership, it has an expiry date on the front. If you've renewed it, it's got a validation sticker on the back. So the photocopy has to be of a validated current copy. And as for insurance, up until not too long ago, you had to have a physical card. But Tassos, what's happened?
Yeah, so you always have to have a physical card, but now you are able to add it to even your Apple Wallet, for example, if they do send you an insurance card. Also, if you don't carry it, there is a conviction that you can get for not carrying your valid insurance, right? So they're almost giving you leeway by allowing it to have it on your phone. And if it was me, I would always ask the officer if it's okay to grab my phone and show you the insurance slip prior to just grabbing anything from my
Yeah,
glove box.
we don't like sudden movements, do we? It's one of those things that throws people. If you've watched a movie, in the States, it's people want their hands up. No, we don't. We're not quite there yet here, but we do like to know when you're digging around your car. As for the insurance card being electronic. That's not a picture of your insurance card. That's an electronic version that's provided by your insurance company through an approved app or like similar to that of the vaccine certificates, right? It creates a tag and goes into your wallet if you're on Apple, but it's not just a picture.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, they send you an email, right? So you can even show it's an email directly from your insurance company. Every company has a little bit slightly different process, but it's always nice to reach out to them to get the proper way.
Yeah, and technology's changing, so some companies may have the new updated fancy schmancy way, and others may just send you a PDF. Either way, saving that document, making sure that you provide it properly, and not everybody knows that that's legal now. It's been some time that's been in effect, and it's great that it's available. I'm sure we'll see a lot more documents move the way electronically. But think about this: if you're relying on your phone and your phone dies, you're still eligible for a ticket, and the ticket is not expensive. It's not terrible. It's $60. But who wants a ticket? Nobody.
So a follow up to that, is it true that you have 24 hours to provide insurance if you do get pulled over, or is that a judgment call?
Well, there's nothing in, especially, I can only speak to Toronto. So, literally 20 years ago, if you got a ticket for a document offense, very often the officer would say, bring me proof to the station within 24 hours or 48 hours and I'll take it back. We don't do that anymore. Tickets are issued directly roadside. They're processed immediately at the end of that shift. There's nothing to come back and deal with. There's no ticket waiting to go into the box like it used to be when we used pen and paper. So that's not a thing. You're issued the ticket. You can certainly bring it to court and prove it, but the offense is failing to surrender upon demand. It's not failing to have. If I didn't think you had insurance, I'd charge you in a completely different fashion, and you'd be looking at the potential of $5,000 to $25,000 in fines on a first conviction. That's a totally different charge. Simply not having your card when you're asked for it is the offense. So giving you 24 to 48 hours to surrender it, completely a waste of time. Q has a question. Can I drive in a parking lot without a license? So on private property, the HTA, other than stunt driving, doesn't apply. We don't write charges or don't charge anyone for that offense. Granted, if you're driving on private property without a license, you're not insured. And if you get into a collision while learning to drive on private property, that's a problem because there's cameras that could prove things in the event that an insurance company wanted to find out. Like, do you get claims like that, Tassos, where someone's been teaching their kid to drive even though the kid's underage, doesn't have a license, something happens, and then someone tries to say it was really dad driving?
I'm sure it happens all the time. Unfortunately, I don't work in the claims department. I haven't gone through that, but you don't really see a ticket for that on our side, right? So I'm sure it definitely happens on it, and everyone thinks private property you can't get any convictions, but that's obviously changing.
Well, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things progress. Right now, the HTA only applies to stunt driving on private property, but we may see a day where they expand other things to private property as well. We'll see. Let's see here. Boom, boom, boom. Is a driver responsible for passengers wearing seatbelts? If the passenger is under the age of 16, yes, they are. The driver is responsible. If the passenger is 16 or older, it is the passenger's responsibility for that ticket. Now, granted, if your 16-year-old is not wearing their seatbelt, really the driver, who may be mom or dad, is still going to be paying for it likely, even though it may be coming out of allowance to balance the books. But at the end of the day, responsibility is irrelevant. If someone gets hurt, it'll be forever that you'll be, worried about it and thinking about it. What is the stunt driving speed on private parking, private property? Stunt driving is, there's no posted speed on private property. So what is stunt driving on private property? Wheelies, burnouts, drifting, anything that racing, so many behaviors that could be construed or trigger stunt driving offenses. Like if you're what do they call it, ghost riding, where you put it in drive and then walk beside the car, that's stunt driving. So it doesn't have to be speed to trigger stunt driving offenses. And technically anything over 150 kilometers anywhere is stunt driving. So, but at the same time, that would be dangerous driving. We could also charge criminally in those situations, depending on what the thing is, the activity is. We have different ways of responding. Okay. Q is asking on behalf of somebody else. Driver's license suspended in Manitoba. Can I drive on Ontario? So if you're suspended in Manitoba with a Manitoba license, you have no license in Ontario. If you were suspended in Manitoba with an Ontario license and you come back to Ontario, you're suspended in Ontario because we will know that you were suspended there. You're not allowed to drive when you have been suspended somewhere else. Okay. Let's see here. And if you have two licenses, which you're not supposed to have, but you're suspended on Manitoba and you're driving an Ontario license that hasn't been suspended because you surrendered your Manitoba license, you're still suspended because you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to circumvent and drive on an Ontario license while suspended in another province. So all around, you can't drive. Okay.
So what happens if there's an American here and they're caught with a DUI? How is that processed if they're not
So
really residents?
they're not residents, so we issue a suspension. We create an Ontario driver's license number for them, and they are suspended from driving in the province of Ontario. And generally speaking, everybody else, because you're suspended now on your Ontario license, so anywhere in Canada you'd be suspended, is my understanding. And then, depending if there's a reciprocal agreement with the local, their local license holder. So we definitely have reciprocals with New York and what is it? New York and I can't think of what the other one is. Michigan. Michigan? I think it's Michigan. In any case, it is Michigan. And those two states we'd report, and I imagine they'd be suspended there as well.
Then they got to take a plane ticket back, I guess.
I don't know how that would work in terms of getting their license back or getting it driven or towed. It might be a towing situation. There's so many interesting things when it comes to that. Just don't drink and drive. Won't have to ever figure it out. Let's see here. What about racetracks? This is in relation to stunt driving. So if it's a properly constructed racetrack and it meets the criteria under the Act, racetracks and go-kart tracks are exempt. But there's criteria that they'd have to meet. It's not just putting up some cones and saying, that is my track because I have that, I said it is. I said it 3 times, thus it is. No, it has to be constructed for that purpose. Excuse me. Okay, plate was stolen, called in, can I still get charges? If you've reported the license plate stolen, and there's a police report on file, and you've got new plates as a result of that because your plate's gone, could you be charged based on the activity of the person who's stolen your plates? You've taken steps to justify it. You shouldn't be responsible for it at that point. I say shouldn't be, because if it's a legitimate claim and everything happens, some people report their things stolen after they've misused it, like potentially getting into a collision after they've been drinking and driving. And then the next day there's a report, my car was stolen, I don't know where it is. So it depends. Loading, who wants to know if I remember his burbles? He's back. And yeah, I do remember you. How can I forget you, Loading? First of all, it's a very creative username. Okay, let's see here. Highway 35 115, can you use a high beam at night? I don't know what 35 and 115 is. It's not a highway that I'm familiar with, but high beaming at night is legal as long as you're not approaching oncoming traffic and blinding them with it, because there's a rule about that. Okay. Q wants to remind everybody about the Discord. Discord is our place where we hang out in between lives. I just saw Angela pop in and say, drink. Water, Sean, water. Yeah, I'm often reminded to hydrate, so I'm not doing that sound, and I do appreciate it because sometimes I just keep answering questions without breaking. Okay, I keep getting stopped for legal tints. What should I do? This is from Lewis C89. You get stopped for legal tints. So what tint level do you have? I'd be curious to know that. Also, if you're getting stopped at night, you are responsible for ensuring that your interior is viewable regardless of atmospheric conditions. So if it's nighttime and the officer cannot see you, that's still illegal. You can't obscure the interior of the vehicle. Now, it might be legal during the day, but not at night, which sounds odd, doesn't it? But the rules say that you can't obstruct the interior, and if your tint obstructs it or obscures it, you still have a problem. But Lewis, let me know what you have for the tint. Okay. Let's see here. Are templates okay in other provinces? If you're taking a 10-day temporary ticket or sticker and driving interprovincially, I'd be questioning why you have a template, because that's really just for you to get your safety done, etc. It's not supposed to be driving long term on that. Is it accepted in other jurisdictions within 10 days? Yeah, I imagine it would be. Let's see here. It's a valid plate for 10 days. Okay. What is this? I keep getting the minimum case. They know my family. I don't know. I don't know what this. The one genuine guy says. I keep getting the minimum case, but I don't know what you're talking about. Okay. Are we allowed to have sun stripes on windshield? If your vehicle was manufactured 2016 or older, you're allowed to have 3 inches across the top of the window. We call it a brow, and or to the PS1 line, depending on the windshield design. 3 inches or to the PS1 line, whatever happens first, but only if your vehicle is 2016 or older. If it's 2017 or newer, you are not permitted to have that on the windshield anymore. Okay. What if an emergency vehicle hits a car while responding? Then there's a collision that needs to be investigated. Okay. Yeah, it's depending on the situation. More often than not, when we're going to an event, we're responsible for everything we do. We have to do it in safety. And yeah, things happen. There have been collisions in the past, and if we're at fault, we're at fault. That happens. Okay. Hopefully people pay attention to the lights and siren and actually do what they're supposed to do, which is pull over, which may be a situation where they're charged. Depends. Really depends. Okay. What if I didn't know I was suspended and pulled over? So it depends. You may or may not be charged. It depends if you were notified by mail. After a period of time, you're deemed served. Even if you have not received the mail, you're still suspended. Whether you're charged or you're simply advised at the roadside at that point and then served formally, so you're now aware, it depends on the officer. It really does. If you were served as a result of a court proceeding, you are likely being charged. If you are served in mail for non-payment, depends. But it's going to depend on the way it's handled. But you could be charged regardless. Am I allowed to drive on the shoulder to pass? No, you're not. You can't drive on the shoulder. There's certain areas that have cutouts, and yeah, I guess if someone's turning left on a small road, could you edge off there? If you tap the shoulder, would it be a problem? Probably not. But driving on the shoulder to pass, like on a motorcycle, for instance, when highway is stopped and traffic is going, absolutely not. There's so many options with that question. Car bought in the United States, do I need to get Canadian insurance? You bought the car in the States, and where's it registered? If it's registered in the States because you're visiting, no, you have an American insurance, you're covered. Assuming your insurance policy extends into Canada, where would you need, Tassos, any thoughts on this question?
Yeah, so if you buy your car in the States and you're planning to bring it to Canada, then you would have to have all the documentation showing that it's been imported correctly and passes the safety, and then get it insured on your insurance company, because the intention is to bring it and drive it here. If the intent is you're a snowbird and the intent is to leave it in Florida, then no, you would actually have to have insurance in the United States, as most insurance companies only let you drive your vehicle outside of Canada for less than 6 months at a time in a year.
Right on. And for the people who decide that they have mailing addresses in other provinces so that they can get lower insurance rates, that's a problem. That's insurance fraud, is it not?
Yeah, that's definitely insurance fraud. I mean, we've seen cases where people say they live up north just to save the plate rate because it's cheaper to get your plates when you're up north. But insurance fraud is no joke. It is pretty severe, and you basically can't get insurance after, or you're paying tons of money, especially for fraud.
Yeah, it's a big problem. Now, let's see here. We got a question of factory rear tint dark. Can I still get a ticket? The windows that are regulated, the windows that we have issues with, are the windshield and the driver's, the windows, excuse me, directly left and right of the driver. So if your front driver, front passenger seat windows are dark, that's a problem. And dark, there's a regulatory or a number that is regulated, and there's still the ability to be charged under the Highway Traffic Act for being too dark because we can't identify you or see you. But rear windows, anything behind the driver, back window, no, they're not regulated at all. You can go as dark as you want. You don't technically need to have windows back there at all. And Angela Topping wants to know, can I have banners or stickers all over my car? So all over your car, the body, you can do whatever you like. The banners or stickers in the windows are a problem if you're dealing with the front three windows. Rear windows, you can do what you like. Driver's side, the windows directly left and right of the driver or windshield, it is a problem. You have to be able to you're not allowed to obstruct your view. There's some safety issues there. Specifically, and this is something that a friend of mine recently mentioned, and I love the answer because it makes a lot of sense. If it's in the path of the wiper blades, that would be a good indication that it's illegally placed and obstructing your view. The design of the vehicle was done in such a way that anywhere the windshield wiper touches is intended for you to look through. Otherwise, it wouldn't wipe there. So if it's not in the view of the windshield wiper, you should be good. If it is inside and being touched by the windshield wiper when it goes on, yeah, it's a problem. Okay. There's a question about electric bikes. Where is this? I want to look. There's questions about electric bikes. I'm gonna try and work my way down there. At what point can I use a shoulder on a highway? For emergency purposes, you're pulling over for an emergency. That would be a reason to use the shoulder. It's not to pull over to use your cell phone. Your cell phone can wait. Yeah, it's for emergency use. That's it. Okay. Oh, so that would fall on. So Q says, what about dodging in a collision? Like if you're swerving to avoid? Yeah, you could. That's an emergency. So dodging a collision, if you do that on a soft shoulder, you're probably going to ensure that you're off the road and potentially into an even more dangerous situation. So it depends. For a disabled vehicle, pulling off the road is really where you want to go. Swerving to avoid, yeah, potentially, but you're going to end up in a ditch. It's going to be bad for you. Yeah, I was going to start talking about safety equipment is more designed to hit something than roll over, and so you're putting yourself in a really odd situation. How to improve a chance of a warning? Warning for a motor vehicle, or HTA ticket versus being charged. It depends on the offense. Some offenses, there's no warning. It's going to happen no matter any way you cut it. And if it's going to be a potential of a warning, I start with being polite. That's a big thing. If you're rude, there's very little reason for someone or an officer to consider giving a warning. But warnings are funny. It really depends on the charge. Okay, expensive cars have purple tint on the front? ? I'm not aware of expensive cars having purple tint on the front. They may have glass that has a pigment in the glass that is not a tint or a coating, but I'm not familiar with any purple tinted front windshields legally on cars, expensive or otherwise. Let's see here. Can I add a light under the seats in the car? Sure you can. And you can drive with your interior light on too. Underglow in your seat, not a problem. The issue can be when you're projecting out of your vehicle or disco ball distraction for everything. What's this here? So many.
Someone in the chat was talking about no license, no insurance. Is that real? Well, yeah, you can't get insurance unless you do have a valid Ontario license in regards to it through an insurance company.
Interesting. So you cannot get.
No, yeah, you can't get insurance because we don't have proof. So if you're an international student, let's say, and you have an international license, for the most part, we would wait until you get your license transferred over to Ontario and then give you the insurance policy that you require. Which
is actually a requirement in Ontario. In Quebec, for instance, you can be an international student. You're not required to get an Ontario license. In Ontario, however, you're a resident when you're staying here for school, so you need to get your license. Okay. How do I tell an officer I don't think it's safe to stop? It's not really up to you. If a police officer activates their lights and sirens and initiates a traffic stop, you're required by law to follow that direction. And failure to do so could end up in resulting in charges. So just because you don't think it's safe, it doesn't really give you many options. Once you're pulled over in compliance of that direction, and you say, I don't feel comfortable here, would you mind us pulling off to the road? And depending on the type of investigation you're being investigated for, the officer might be fine with that. But they've also taken into consideration prior to starting that stop where they are. And they have lighting equipment and possibly have more than one officer behind to allow for a safe stop. Okay. What does this say? Can I have one of those signs in the back? I don't know what those signs in the back that you're referring to is. That's from loading. Is it true that cops get free coffee at Timmy's? There are people who try and give us free stuff. I don't get free coffee at Timmy's. I also order with an app 99% of the time. Incentives for EVs in Ontario. well, we have a green plate program. So if you're an electric vehicle or a plug-in hybrid, you can get an electric plate and you get some access to HOV lanes when you're solo. Beyond that, I'm not aware of what the rebates are anymore, or if there's any other incentives. But it's a good question. Do you know of any Tassos?
No, not really. I think sometimes though, like some companies out there, if you work for them, some of them are giving you incentives if you are getting, an EV vehicle, depending on situations,
So
but
employers might.
nothing. Yeah, like I know, for example, my wife's employer gives them a rebate if they do get an electric vehicle,
Cool.
but not every company out there does that.
That's very interesting. Well, it's going to be very interesting watching it go forward, because as the technology becomes more or more widely adopted, it'll either be something that people will either require, or who knows. I look forward to seeing this show, the movie, when it finishes. 905 guy wants to know, why must we pull over to the right rather than the left? It depends. It's closest curb. So if you're on a divided highway, technically you could pull over to the left if it was safe. 99% of the time we want you on the right. It's just going to be safer for you to re-enter the highway. Think about this. When you start driving, even if there was a shoulder on the left, when you have to start moving, it'll be easier for you to get back on the road. So it's closest. When you're getting out of the way, not necessarily for a vehicle stop, just getting out of the way, it could be either side. Closest curb. Can a driver's license be suspended for an unpaid ticket for no muffler? Yeah, that's directed to the driver, so that if you don't pay it, you won't be able to renew. Not necessarily. I don't know, is it suspended? Yeah, I guess it can be suspended for non-payment. Unpaid tickets. Yeah, you can get a suspension for unpaid tickets. I don't think there's a restriction for the type. I'm just racking my brain. I don't think there's anything that says a ticket A would allow you, but ticket B would not. Tickets for parking, for instance, that just prevents you from renewing your validation stickers. But I'm pretty sure you can be suspended for non-payment on any ticket. Let's see here. Hey, if you're not already following us, please hit that follow button and join us on this adventure when we go live all the time and drop new content. Louis wants to know what the worst excuse is that I've ever heard. I always come back to the same answer, and it's that I had to poo. That's what he said. I had to poo. It's just like, I get it, but it's not a reason to put people's lives at risk. Oh, here's the one with icons. Okay. Sorry to keep you waiting so long. So, battery-powered e-bikes with no insurance, no license, is that real? Emo EV. So, if it's an e-bike, which has a specific requirement of not traveling over 30, or not being capable of traveling over 32 kilometers an hour, if they're an e-bike, they're a bicycle, and they don't require license, ownership, or insurance. However, if that vehicle is modified or capable of traveling more than 32 kilometers an hour, if it has a motor more powerful than 500 watts, if it doesn't conform to all the regulations under the e-bike legislation, then it's a motorcycle. It requires license, ownership, and insurance, and that's a bad day at the office, because if you violate that, the insurance charge alone is $5,000 to $25,000, and possible, I think it's 6 months in jail. I think there's a potential conviction of 6 months of jail. So not good. And folks, and you can also be charged for impaired driving on an electric bike, regardless if it's an e-bike or not. Have you seen a lot of that? People who are calling for insurance on their e-bikes, or
Yeah, they're starting to get a little bit more calls and popular for that. So at the moment, though, we're not doing anything for it really.
not offering insurance.
No, not offering insurance.
I wonder if that's probably something that's going to come, because so many injuries and so many collisions with vehicles where it's a cycle or a bicycle, but it's really on the wire. Like it's really liability is it's got to change.
It's almost like your property insurance, your home insurance liability would come into play, which is a whole other topic, right? Because your home insurance liability follows you anywhere in the world, so anything out of your actions would be basically covered by that.
Interesting. It's a very muddy topic. Very, very interesting. This is a great question. Thanks for bringing it up, Q. There was a question from the chat, and that is, when do people need to update their driver's licenses and stickers? So if you have a full G or your license plate is expired, and it expired after March 2020, then you have an extension up until February 28th, 2022. If you have a learning license, your expiry is being extended, assuming that it expired March 2020 or later, your expiry is being extended until December 31st, 2022. And let's see here. Okay, so this is just in relation to an article where I was just reading that on Twitter this morning. A couple went to try and to fly interprovincially with expired driver's licenses, and I believe they were denied, and because their license was expired. So it's interesting. I don't know how that applies, because if it's being extended, you'd think that it would be accepted everywhere because it's extended. There's a PDF form that folks can get online, but really there's no excuse for not renewing it. There's no benefit to not renewing it. It just saves you from waiting in line today to wait in front of a much larger line tomorrow. If you are under the age of 80, you can renew your license online. You can go online and renew it, assuming you don't need a photo. So, yeah. Wild. Okay. Wearing a helmet, question mark. What is the question? Is there more to this? Because Paul wants to know about wearing a helmet. Would you ticket a non-Sikh motorcyclist for not wearing a helmet? Yeah, they're not covered under the extension, so they're not allowed to ride a motorcycle without a helmet, while those that are Sikh are permitted to due to an exemption. So if someone was riding without a helmet, they'd get a ticket for it. Let's see here. Am I allowed to approach a cop in their car? What do you mean? Like you're walking up and you want to ask them a question? Sure you can. I'd be very very transparent to the fact that you're there, not sneak up, because bad things happen when you sneak up on police officers. Let's see here. I see. Okay. So just more follow-up from Q. The folks that tried to board the plane and they had their passports but not on them. Interesting. Oh, you're having okay. Let's see here. And just let everybody know, we don't have a 10 o'clock show today. We do have, what do we have tomorrow? We have Jerry Agar. Yeah, Jerry Agar show at 9:30. So we'll be on at 9. At 9:30 or so, we're going to be joining Jerry Agar on News Talk 1010, and he'll be joining us, and we'll chat about some stuff and things. And let's see here. And that's going to be tomorrow. So make sure you show up tomorrow. Yes. What's the difference between a G2 and a G? G2 has well, you're not allowed to have any alcohol in your system. It's one of the conditions. It also expires. You can't renew a G. So you can't renew a G2. So that's the primary difference. And beyond that, not much, because you can drive anywhere with that G2. But it is important to get your G at the end of the day. That's it. So listen, it's that time. We got to shut her down because there's stuff and things that have to happen now. But it's been a blast. We've had a great hour. Thanks so much for joining us. And for the folks that are also on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, where else? LinkedIn. Thanks for spending time. And Tassos, thanks. I'm really surprised we didn't get more questions. And it makes sense that we could have done a whole show just about insurance at 10:15, but unfortunately, I got something I got to do today. I can't do it. So to the folks on TikTok, hit follow if you don't already follow, and we will be back tomorrow at 9 o'clock. So we'll see you then. Got more videos being posted this afternoon. So we got updates on impaired driving stats from the weekend. So be on the lookout for that, and we will see you tomorrow. And what else? So hitting goodbye on TikTok, but we're still here on YouTube. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Bye, TikTok.
Oh, we got the. Oh, thank you for jumping in with that. That's it's nice to have the. Q could even bump in to say that, but no. Anyway, okay, shutting down the. Oh.
Bye, TikTok.
You missed it. You missed it. I hit end. I wasn't expecting you.
Okay, I'm
Okay.
leaving then.
So our stats are really weird. That's not accurate at all. It says total. That's not right. Top viewer count 358. Total views 147. Explain how those stats worked. They didn't.
That makes no sense.
No, there's something wrong with the stats on.
Screenshot it first. And
I
send it
did.
back in. Okay.
I did. In fact, I'm going to report it. I'll send the report back to TikTok because that happens. Share beta feedback. Okay. Yeah, I'll send that in. So, what did you think, Tassos? Doing a full show?
Yeah, definitely could do a full show, and when I maybe send out a preparation date so people can have some questions ready to go.
Yeah, well, we should collect them now. We should always have a running tally of questions for Tassos.
I would be open to answering those, especially even maybe sending them over to me, and I can make a video maybe regarding some of them.
Cool.
And go from there. But yeah, I think if you have a tally and keep them up, we can definitely answer a few at maybe a 10-15 on a show.
Yeah, we should do it. Oh, Q wants to know if you're gonna make TikToks. You're gonna start your channel up, the insurance dude.
I possibly could, yeah.
Oh, actually, and new features coming out on TikTok that you can actually go in and respond by video.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can respond to our questions. So that's got potential.
Okay.
It's got potential all over it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Listen, we're going to shut down this live stream. Thanks very much. I really appreciate you jumping in. We got to get you to do this more often. It was fun.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me.
All right, we're gonna hit end here, but we're still gonna be connected after we hit end. So to everyone watching on these platforms and watching a replay, thanks for spending time with us. Really appreciate it. Don't forget to tune in next time. We'll be live tomorrow, 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, right here where he is.